what I've noticed so far is I'm very energized by the conversation. It seems like y'all enjoy each other's company. That's good. And you seem to pray well together, and that's good. Pray well, play well, right? And so one of that piece that we just did, or at least most of it, came from a resource we just developed to help churches get started. We developed a 16 gathering resource that helps presbyteries and churches who want to start churches go from zero to calling a pastor.
I was going to say that it's so central to what we are doing, but we forget this. Mm-hmm. And we get caught up in the details and all the things that help put new churches together, and we forget to talk about Jesus and pray about it. Mm-hmm. So I appreciate it.
It's amazing. It's amazing, really, isn't it? Isn't it? It's shocking to have. That's a great. The way you said it was great. We just forget to talk about it. Yeah. It's not like it's not important. It's just we get talking about other stuff and we forget.
Right.
Very good. And that's important because when we start talking about the ABCs, and the things that try to define us or that other people try to define us by. It's easy to get caught up in those, and you forget what's really important. And as we'll talk about here in a little bit, the attendance, the building, the contributions, all that stuff is important, but it doesn't necessarily define us. And if we don't know what defines us, then we can't really engage people in a dialogue. All right, for the rest of the time, I think we're going to try to end here at 11:45 for lunch, and I hope we'll have enough time to do this. When I originally was asked to do this, it wasn't my deal. Brian Clark, some of you know Brian, he's a pastor in Virginia, Riverside Presbyterian Church, and he was going to, I think they had originally asked him to do Beyond the ABCs, or they had this concept of what this would be, and they called and said, well, why don't, they asked me to do it instead of Brian, because Brian does everything. Brian's everywhere, and they're like, we need a new face. So I kind of inherited this, not sure exactly what they were looking for, and kind of developed along a path of what we're going to do. But then I went to a gathering in South Carolina last week and met George Bullard. Anybody know George Bullard? He's a part of the Columbia Partnership. He's actually a Baptist guy, so go figure you don't know him. But there's some really good Baptists out there. They do a lot with church development too. It's amazing. But Trinity Presbytery in South Carolina is working on training transformation coaches. Part of what I do is also not only new church development, but it's also congregational transformation. And they've developed a program where they do the pure coaching kind of thing, teaching people how to coach. But then they talk about the redevelopment side, what good redevelopment processes. And George wrote a book called Pursuing the Full Kingdom Potential. And we're gonna zoom in. Which camera? There we go, zoom in. Whether you're in new church development or congregational transformation, whether you're a presbytery person, I would get this book. It's very, very helpful. It's the first time I really kind of went, oh, that makes sense in terms of how churches grow and how they die, and kind of the life cycle. I'm sure it's been out there, and I just haven't had a chance to come across it. Get this and read it. I mean, because at some point, all these churches you're starting are going to mature, and they're going to grow, and they're going to hit adulthood, and they're going to hit maturity, and then if you're not careful, they're going to be, on the downhill slide at some point. So it's always good and helpful to know this. So a lot of what I'm talking about today, I switched, and I want to try to present this. It's kind of like going to a conference and you hear something really good, and you think, oh, this is great, and you go back and try to communicate it to your congregation, and they just look at you with that dumbfounded look like, I'm afraid that's what's going to happen today. So, that's why we ask you to bring your teams, because we don't want you to be the only one with that, energy going back to your congregation. But pursuing the full kingdom potential of your congregation, George Bullard, Jr., and if you want more information about that, I'll be glad to get that to you. But I do that not only to say that this is his, but also to, and I told him I was going to steal it. So it's not like, I told him at the conference, said, okay, I'm stealing all this stuff, and I'm going to present it next week, and he was fine with it. But I was reading on, I think it was CNN or Fox or Yahoo or whatever it was, talks about that there was a pastor that was asked to resign because of plagiarism. He was plagiarizing his sermons. He was using somebody else's sermons. So I'm kind of sensitive today. I want to make sure that I get it on camera that this is not mine. I wish it were, because then I would have a little more money than I do now.
Before you proceed, one quick question.
Yes.
Is this book on the GA resource?
It's not on the GA resource, but I can give you the. It comes from the Columbia Partnership. Actually, Leadership Network George writes for Net Results and Leadership Network. There's a lot of good books out in the series. So if you go to thecolumbiapartnership.com, you can find it. Thecolumbiapartnership.com, you can get it there. I think you can get it on Amazon, all that good stuff. So, one of the things he talks about, and the second part of this is going to be the life cycle and stages of congregational development. He talks about generative dialogue issues. Make sure this is working. Actually, there are 10 generative dialogue issues, and what he talks about, they're dialogues because they're meant to be in conversation with your church. Within your congregation, it's meant to create dialogue around certain concepts. The generative part is designed because it's supposed to generate a greater understanding of who you are and what you're doing. There are actually 10 of these, and you see I only have 4. These 4 come out, and I'm giving you the real short version of this, so if you want the longer version. Visionary leadership, relationship experiences, programmatic emphasis, and accountable management. And then there are, like I said, there are pastoral leadership, there are people of passion, there are a lot of different kind of dialogues you can have. These 4 that have been pulled out and kind of are present in all the stages of life of the church. And so what we want to do is we're going to talk about each of these areas, specifically VRPM. And then we're going to look at how, and hopefully, one of the things I'll be asking is, where are you in the life cycle of the church? So let's talk about these real quick and go through these. First of all is the visionary leadership. And if you want to shorten it down, you can just call it vision. You don't have to do visionary leadership. But basically, it's going to be vision, relationships, programs, and management. Those are kind of the 4 terms we're going to be using. But visionary leadership is basically this. It is a strong, clear, and passionate sense of our identity, in other words, who we are, our core values, what we believe or highly value, our vision, where we are heading, and our spiritual strategic journey as a congregation, how we are getting there. This is as I look at this is key, and probably where most of you are on some level. Vision is the first thing that you have as a growing church, this kind of visionary leadership. And it's very important, and it's more than just a mission statement. And in his book, he talks about, he says, any resemblance between a vision and a vision statement are purely accidental. Sometimes we want to get in our back rooms and we want to try to craft this 10 to 15 word mission statement that guides the life of the church. Sometimes we call it a vision statement, mission statement. And he's very clear to say that that's different than the vision that God gives us. That there's a difference between vision. Vision lifts us up, where a lot of times we look at vision as pushing us out. And that's the difference between, if you know, like an airplane. I learned this the other day. I learned physics. I just thought you got going fast and it just got up in the air magically. I don't know. But apparently, as the wind goes over the wing, it's lighter than the wind going under the wing, and an airplane's actually lifted up off the ground rather than pushed up off the ground. How many of you knew that? Am I the only one that knew that? Okay, so I'm not the only kind of goofball in here. But it's an amazing thing that the vision that God is giving to us lifts us up, rather than our own abilities pushing ourselves off the ground. And you can go and you're going to develop mission statements and you're going to develop mission, cute little, 2 or 3 word kind of phrases that are going to encapsulate your mission and your vision. But that's different than what we're talking about here. And vision is something that you experience. It's not something necessarily that you can always articulate. Vision is something that God captivates you with. And sometimes vision, you really don't know what the vision is until you've lived it for a while. And you really don't know whether the vision is being caught by the church until you actually sit and start talking to people and say, so what is our church about? Maybe a good way to get into that is the people in your church. Sit down and ask them, so what's our church about? And hopefully they're not going to recite your mission statement, your vision statement. But they're going to talk about what God is doing and what God is doing to captivate them with the vision that God has for their church. I want to make sure we get out, before I go on, that everybody has a chance to write this down. But who we are, what we believe or highly value, where we are heading, and how we get there. And it's important because the thing is, the 3 words that captivate this is vision plus intentionality. A lot of us have vision, but the intentionality. In other words, it's yes, God is doing something. Yes, God is captivating us with a vision of who we are called to be, who we are. But there's an intentionality. It's that kind of strategic spiritual journey that George will talk about. That it's not just this grand vision, but there's an intentionality about how we're going to get there and movement toward what God is calling us to be and do. Okay? And so that's that great V thing.